So serial killers. Lacey loves them. So this book is like the sort of foundational text of an entire sort of genre, of all the podcasts, of all the movies. It gets adapted into a movie in 1986 called Manhunter, directed by Michael Mann. I've seen that movie a few times.
Michael Mann was an actor.
Nope.
I always do this. Who am I thinking of?
Let's see. Let's work this out.
Usual Suspect. No, not Usual Suspects. Reservoir Dogs.
Michael Madsen?
Michael Madsen. I do that every time.
You do that every time. That is true. Every time I bring up Michael Mann.
Yep.
Yeah, Michael Mann, director of Heat, Collateral, Miami Vice. Adapts the movie. It's not a big hit. People really like it today. It is really good. I watched it.
We should watch it.
Relatively recently, and then I watched some of it today to sort of get ready for this. And it is very, very... It's fascinating to watch a movie that has Hannibal Lecter in it, who's this iconic character who was not iconic and would not even appear in the book upon which the movie that would make him an icon had even been written. So this movie was made before Silence of the Lambs. The book was even written. So he's played by Brian Cox. He's a very minimal presence in the movie, but the movie, unlike Red Dragon, very much wants to dive into how tormented Will Graham must be, and makes it much more about the process. Not the cat and mouse, but the way, they're not so different, you and I, the killer and the hero.
You spend more time in his mind. Tell me the name of the movie again.
Manhunter. Okay. And they had to call it that because the producer of the movie, Dino De Laurentiis, says we can't call it Red Dragon. People will think it's a kung fu movie. So they called it Manhunter.
Fair.
Which was dumb. But it's just such a weird... I don't know. Anyway, 1988, Silence of the Lambs gets written. It is a big hit. They make a movie out of it. 1991, Silence of the Lambs. Jodie Foster and Anthony Hopkins both win Oscars. The movie wins Oscar, Best Picture, Best Director.
I didn't know they both won.
Yeah. It's the only the third time that's happened where a movie has won
the other,
picture, director, actor, actress. It happened one night in 1935.
Is one of them in the last 10 years?
No. And then the next one was One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Oh. Jack Nicholson and Louise Fletcher. And that movie is a giant hit, a giant phenomenon, redefines the crime genre. Directed by Jonathan Demme, who is not... I didn't know much about Jonathan Demme until he died, and I started kind of in 2017, and I kind of went back into his filmography. And take
me through that journey, please.
All right.
What are his films? So
he makes a ton of movies in the 70s, a ton of like B movies and documentaries. And then in the 80s, he makes a movie called Melvin and Howard that Mary Steenburgen won an Oscar for. And it's kind of this like slice of life comedy dramedy.
Mumblecore before Mumblecore?
Sure. It's a lovely movie. And over the next decade, he just kind of makes like really grounded, really funny but also serious movies about just like people and their complexities.
Tell me what they are.
So Something Wild, Swing Shift, Married to the Mob.
Oh, I've seen that one.
You have? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And he also makes lots of documentaries. Ooh. But his big thing is just human beings. Gotta love them. Gotta hate them. They're flawed, but ooh, there's something there.
Those humans, they have something.
Yeah. He's just a very empathetic person.
Yeah.
And when you watch Silence of the Lambs, you would like him. Because it's not filmed like a horror or even a thriller, he kind of films it like he would film any of his earlier movies. Mm-hmm. And because he has so many shots of the characters looking directly into the camera to put you directly there with them and make it so intimate, that makes it all the scarier because you're dealing with just horrific shit.
And it's done well because I couldn't even have put my finger on that. Like, that's not something that stood out. It's just that the effect sits with you, not he shows you, doesn't tell you.
Yeah.
Like he does it in such a way that's like, oh, I just feel the impact, not the fact that they're still
it's not showy. You're not like, what's going on? This is so jarring.
Right.
It's
like,
just once it's pointed out to you, you're like, oh, this is unusual.
Yep, exactly.
And apparently it's very difficult for actors to do because it's just totally against their training.
Well, have you ever tried to look dead into your camera during a Zoom? I try to do it every time.
Which they say you're supposed to do, but
and
I can't.
It's so fucking weird.
Yeah.
I do it.
But
it took a long time to do it.
And if acting is reacting and you're acting with somebody, instead of looking at them, you just have to look at the camera. But because of that, you're with Clarice down in the dungeon talking to Lecter. You're with her all throughout the movie. She's a lone woman going into situations where she's just surrounded by men who are just constantly like just leering at her in a way that the movie doesn't call attention to. But once you notice that, you notice every scene in the movie has this going on.
Well, and they go out of their way to show how small she is. I think I even asked you the last time we watched it, how tall is she? And I think she's my height, like 5'3" or something. But like, do they just surround her on purpose with giant men? But yeah, I see. Okay, so Matt's about to play a scene from Silence of the Lambs.
And it's not playing. That's great. I don't think of you as a short woman.
I mean, 5'10" is the bare minimum for a model. 5'7" is the average, and I'm 5'3", 4 inches less than the average.
So everywhere she goes, there's the scene where she's at the funeral with just the dozen male cops, and she has to get their attention and get them to leave the room. And I remember Roger Ebert's review of the movie saying, like, that's the bravest thing she does in a movie where she goes down into a dark basement to shoot a serial killer. The courage she shows and just telling a bunch of.
But look at all of them. Is this like a montage of all of the?
I just clipped a bunch of things.
Oh, you made this?
Yeah.
You should totally put this on YouTube and explain what it is. I like that. Oh, hello.
Yeah, even the nice man who wants to take her on a date. He's got this evil smile.
No, it's not his smile. It's his eye. Am I doing it?
You're doing it.
I'm doing one over here and one over here. Like I'm doing it.
Oh, you're good. You're good with eye stuff.
Thank you.
Well, now it's just
men leering at Clarice.
Now it's just going on repeat. But the point is, it's not the intuitive way to make a thriller like this. It's like seeing the material and saying the really upsetting thing is about all of her going about this world, even in the gruesome non-killer parts, living in this man's world, how vulnerable she is.
Yeah. And there's a line in Red Dragon that I really liked about Will being brave, but I can't remember what it is now, but it was just something very insightful that Lecter says, like, you're scared but you're brave, or something like, I don't know, but that's the true courage or whatever. That's what's true about both of them, Clarice and Will.
Yeah, and
that they do it anyway.
Bravery isn't the absence of fear; it's being afraid and doing it anyway, doing something anyway.
Right, but I mean, that's what's special about both of them. It's why Lecter even bothers with either of them. It's because they are putting themselves and their brain at risk to immerse themselves in this world for good.
Yeah,
like they're doing it.
In Clarice's case, everybody says, like, don't let him in, don't let him in. If he starts getting into your head, leave. Don't give him an inch at all. But she does it anyway because she needs to solve this thing.
Well, she's got instinct. She knows that he needs to get in. Without access, he's not going to give her access.
Because
it's reciprocal access. Like, the more you let him fuck with you, but you stand and, like, you take it, not in just in the small ways, just in he wants to see, that's a voyeur right there. Like in the movie where he asks if he can see the pictures and keep them, and if he can see the videotapes of the women. It's just like, man, you'd like to look at some stuff.
And we'll get to Red Dragon, but we're talking about all of this as preamble and also to set up what makes Silence of the Lambs so special, why it resonates the way it does, why people are so drawn to it, even if you don't notice all this extra shit going on, and all of that is what is missing in Red Dragon, in taking a very similar story and not injecting it with anything that's not on the page.
Right, and that is exactly why Silence of the Lambs feels special and unlike anything. And then Red Dragon, now you immediately went, yeah, okay.
Yeah, it feels like everything.
Yeah, it feels like exactly. It feels like everything, and you're right.
That's good, love.
Sans the amazing source material, it would have been nothing, but it was such a compelling story. And really good casting, I would say. I mean, even though the writing...
what a cast. You have...
I love the chick from Punch Drunk Love.
Yeah, Emily Watson.
Is that her name?
Emily Watson, yeah.
Anyway, I like her name.
I always get... there's like a try... ever since I was I don't know how old. I had like a triangle in my head. You've got Emma Thompson.
That's why.
You've got Emily Watson, and then you've got Emma Watson who plays Hermione.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
And it's don't you get them mixed up.
Yeah.
Okay, just a little more preamble. So they try to get Thomas Harris for a long time to write a sequel because at the end of Silence of the Lambs, Dr. Lecter escapes. Clarice has won the day, but Lecter got away, and he, calls her. This seems like a sequel setup, but it's one that never comes. But then eventually, Jonathan Demme expresses interest. Jodie Foster wants to do it. Anthony Hopkins wants to do it, and eventually, Harris writes a book, Hannibal. It is a weird, crazy book, and Jonathan Demme reads it, and he's like, "This is not for me. No, thank you."
That makes me want to read it.
Jodie Foster reads it, says, "This is a betrayal of the character. I'm out." Anthony Hopkins reads it, and he's like, you'll give me how much money? And so they hire Ridley Scott.
It's the book.
They hire Ridley Scott. Damn it! I meant to look into the William Blake thing because I've heard like
I don't know what you're talking about.
the poet and painter who paints the Red Dragon. I just wanted to know more about that.
Okay.
I meant to, but so if you came to this for insights on that, sorry.
Turn around.
Ridley Scott directs it. Nobody really likes it, but it makes a lot of money. And literally a year later,
Who's in it?
Hopkins, Julianne Moore plays Clarice.
Oh, okay. Oh, I did see it.
Yeah. And
Don't remember
it's a bad movie. I haven't seen it in 15 years. I was going to watch some clips. I didn't get around to it.
Got it.
But, it's kind of this is not what we wanted. We wanted just Silence of the Lambs again. And so Dino De Laurentiis, who owns the rights to the Lecter properties, is like, all right, fine. And very, very quickly makes Red Dragon, a movie he'd already made once before, already produced once before as Manhunter. So they hire Brett Ratner, the director of the Rush Hour movies, to make a movie that is very similar in its story, at least, and setting to Silence of the Lambs. They bring back Hopkins. They have Edward Norton as Will Graham in the lead. Ralph Fiennes as Francis Dollarhide, the Tooth Fairy, the Red Dragon, and
really
then we
cast.
also Philip Seymour Hoffman's there,
right? And whoever plays the freaking psychiatrist at the asylum. Fantastic.
Anthony Held. I'm delicious.
Fantastically punchable face.
I mean, the most, gleefully shitty person.
Well, and just always sweaty and always like.
Yes.
Yeah.
That guy always, like, he's in so much less of both of Silence of the Lambs and this than I ever remember, but he like always looms so large in my memory.
He's got one of those strange makeups of a face where all of his features are in the center. And then he's just got all this extra face all the way around. So he doesn't just have a big forehead. He's got wide set cheeks. He's got a big chin. So it's like he's just one big bullseye. You just want to punch him right in the face.
He's asking for it. Yes,
He's got a bullseye on his face.
is asking for it.
He really does. Study it next time you see his face.
Okay.
And then his hair just extends everything. It's like, yeah, that's a bullseye.
So we've got this great book. We've got this great cast. Got a bad director. Oh, but we also brought back the screenwriter from Silence of the Lambs who declined to work on Hannibal, but he's back. He'll make this good, right? All right. Well, we've said we're not, it's fine, but nothing special.
I was enjoying it. I enjoyed it all the way through, but that's because I like something that has this much of a psychology in it and like a backstory in it. Like I said, I already like. I'm gonna like it even when it's crap.
And I think not being familiar with the book, not being familiar with Manhunter will make this seem better than it is because I've seen the better versions. And I don't like to do they changed this from the book, but I think that when you don't carry over crucial things, to me, the whole the point of the story of Red Dragon is the mirror of Will Graham and the Tooth Fairy.
They spend no time with that.
I mean, Will Graham's barely a character, and Edward Norton, a great actor, is terrible in this movie, I think.
I mean, he's fine.
I'll blame Brett Ratner for not giving him anything to work with.
But that's interesting that he's supposed to be a mirror of Will because of Anthony Hopkins' power and because of what he made the series such a phenomenon, they make him the conduit between both of them. So it's like okay, so Anthony Hopkins is Will's mirror and Anthony Hopkins is the Tooth Fairy's mirror. He gets to be both.
It's true.
And the other the Tooth Fairy and Will don't ever seem like, it seems weird when they meet. Like, oh, we care about each other?
Because of that, it's kind of both and neither. Like, Hopkins shouldn't be in this movie.
Right.
His very presence, like all the marketing centers him. His face is giant on the poster. He's in so little of this movie. And more than that, what does he do in the movie that affects anything else in the movie? I was trying to think. Like,
without him, though, I don't think I would have liked it.
That's really like, because
I mean, Harvey Keitel's part. Like, I just feel like Will needed to spend time looking like the sane person so that you could see both. I don't know. I feel like without putting him next to Lecter, you don't get to see how normal and vulnerable Will is.
So his story is he was working with Lecter. Lecter was a psychiatrist and was helping him, catch a serial killer. And then it turned out Lecter himself was the serial killer. And then he cut Will up really badly, and then Will successfully apprehended him.
One time, I sliced you.
Sorry, I think in the book he just he cut his face, which left him with scarring, and they don't have that.
Wait, so then that's just another way
he just looks like a pretty man.
It's another way he can bond with the Tooth Fairy in his cleft palate.
Yep. This encounter with Lecter severely scarred him. He had to go to he got to be institutionalized for a while, and through the course of dragged out of retirement because he's the best in the business at thinking like a serial killer, he realizes he needs Lecter's help. So he goes, and what Manhunter and what especially the book Red Dragon are about is how much that's going to fuck him up to go speak with Lecter. Whereas in this movie, it doesn't matter. It doesn't do anything to him.
See, the way I take it in the movie is, well, I already talked my wife into letting me go to Vegas, so I might as well get a lap dance.
That's true.
That's how I take it. Like, well, I'm away and the cat's going to play. I might as well go see Lecter, too.
Might as well go see my ex.
Like, no, let me do all the things she'll tell me no to do and then go home.
Yeah, that's true.
That's how it felt.
There is that.
Well, no, I'm saying that's because that's a reason why the movie is bad, is that's how it felt, not about like, oh, this is a huge risk for him. For me, it felt like, oh, you love doing this. You even made up 2 more reasons to go see him.
Which, yes, he does love doing it.
God, he loves it.
But
it's his best friend.
In Silence of the Lambs, Clarice's conversations with Lecter help her realize things about herself and help her solve the case. Whereas, does anything that he gets from Lecter and Red Dragon help him with the case?
That's because we're coming in after the pupil's already been tutored, right? Like, I mean, what we don't see is their whole history before. So, I mean, you can imagine Clarice in that spot, but before Lecter was put in jail and while they were just working together. So it makes sense that he'd come as someone who's already seasoned. And that's what the sense you get. They're like, Will's already really good at this. That's why he's been brought back in. You don't need him to have these revelations. He's just trying to get someone to jog his old muscles.
But that's way less interesting.
Yeah, but
okay, so if you're not going to get any of that, then he should at least affect the story. The only thing he does is he sicks the Tooth Fairy on Will. I mean,
we know why.
So the message is like, oh, shouldn't have talked to Lecter after all. Whereas Silence of the Lambs, no, you had to because he helps her solve it. He's her mentor. But
that's the whole point, right? Will is a little bit crazy. He's walking that line, and it's probably best for him to just repair boats and stay the fuck out of it. But he can't help get close to the crazy, so he goes and sees Lecter, even though it's not good for him. It doesn't actually help the case that much, and in fact, it's the only thing that puts his family in danger. I think that's the point, is that this job, that's why Lecter says no one's ever going to be safe that's close to you or something like that. No, it's one of those things. But that's the point. He's driven by something not healthy.
But because the movie is so otherwise not about Will Graham's journey, I think that's what irritates me about it.
Right, it's not earned. No.
Yeah. Whereas Ray Fiennes as the killer is very good, and Emily Watson as his blind love interest.
Is there a blind love interest in the book?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what makes the story.
Is the blind love interest?
I mean, but I did fall for, I was kind of left thinking, okay, he had the dead body that he was going to put her hand in, right? The way he gets away from all the cops is that he sets his house on fire. He's got his blind girlfriend over, and he's like, I won't let you have her. He's fighting himself. He's already put a gun in his mouth once in the movie, making you think he could be suicidal over not wanting to kill her, so he'd kill himself. And then you think he shoots himself in the head, and then it's chaos, it's a fire, but she's blind, so she's feeling around. She feels a head that's been blown off.
Mm-hmm. But you're saying because...
But I guess I thought he really did care about her. But
I think he did.
But he had that body ready to shoot in the head, to use her, to put her through that much pain, and possibly she wouldn't have found her way out of that burning house. So that's I was wondering, like, did he really actually feel? I mean, after he saw her go on a date with that other
that's
guy,
what sets him off. But also seeing her wander around his house makes him realize, I can't do this. My life is not fit to share with anyone else. Look at my fucking house.
She's by my death pond outside.
Yeah.
He's gonna find all the feet.
But before that, he certainly cares about her.
No, I know. He does seem to be struggling with not wanting her to die in that house burning scene. And then, no, it was a big setup because he knew the cops were going to swarm him because he just sent a journalist hurtling down a friggin' street in a antique rocking chair or whatever.
and on camera at the Brooklyn Museum, like, knocks a bunch of ladies out.
Right. So
he
needed to bring them in, and he needed her to verify his death to them.
But
it gave him time.
What sucks about this movie is that it's so, like, clumsy and lazy that you, a smart person, can figure that out, but the movie doesn't, like, help you establish any part of the mechanics of this, and that it gets, you think he's dead, and then it's just like Harvey Keitel calls Edward Norton. He's like, bad news, he was actually alive.
That's not his bones.
Not his body. It turns out his bones, not his body.
Go through all of that, traumatize the only person you've ever kind of loved just because you want to kill this one guy? Isn't your thing that you like to kill whole families? And like, why make your last thing you do something you're not even into?
Because
why?
The movie hasn't done the work about this, but he feels like Graham now he's in a cat and mouse tete-a-tete with him.
Like, well, if he's alive, I'll never get to keep doing the things I want to do.
Even if
he's the only one
not
that
even
can
this,
catch
like it has to come to this. This is destiny. We have to.
The movie makes you think that he's doing it
other.
because he wants to make Lecter proud. Lecter gave him the address, so like if he doesn't use that address to see it through, like he had to find a way to get Edward Norton back to his home in Marathon, Florida, or he doesn't get to use the gift that Lecter gave him. And
he writes the letter to Lecter, and he has his scrapbook where he has the clippings about Lecter. Other than that, the movie doesn't show you at all of Lecter being a presence in Dollarhide's life.
No.
Just another thing that sucks about it.
Glad I didn't talk to you before we watched it, because I did enjoy it, but
the blind lady who is with a guy who's ugly.
He's not
He's
ugly.
quote unquote ugly,
but
can't see it. That's like a classic trope.
Okay, but even the movie doesn't think he's ugly. They go out of their way to explain that he's not. Only he sees himself.
Yeah, I wonder. I mean, yes, it's like in like Ready Player One. You remember the character who's like in the virtual reality. She's super hot, but she's like, "Don't look at me. You wouldn't like the way I look." But she has like a tiny birthmark on her face, and otherwise it's like an extraordinary beauty. I don't know. Yeah, I can't tell if that's.
You're not good at this part.
Okay.
I mean, you're not good at reading these. I don't know. You're not a face person.
Wait. I look at Ralph Fiennes in this movie and I'm like, he doesn't look like a monster, but I can't tell. Is that the point, or is the movie just stupid and is like, look how horrific he is?
I don't think he's supposed to look like a monster. I think he's supposed to look incredibly average, but troubled.
Yeah.
And his haircut is supposed to let you know that he doesn't care a whole lot about taking care of himself, because his haircut is.
Yeah.
Oh, but he's in the military, right? He was?
He was.
Okay, well, that's a military haircut. That's fine. But the tattoo is extensive. And they show his wiener. Just want to say that.
Yeah.
He runs around the house just to swing it.
That was one of the things I remember the most, is you see his dick. Not as much as I thought you did.
Yeah, but no, it's where you see his dick. You see it while he's running away from you through his legs. That dick is so long.
I don't think so. No, I think he's facing the camera.
No, well, you see it then too, but then he's going up the stairs and it's like, well, there's his dick hanging right between
and
his
it's
legs.
like 2 feet down. Yeah, no wonder he wanted to do that.
What's it doing?
What's the point of taking this role? He's like, I spent 6 months building my body.
Did he?
Yeah. The tattoo took 8 hours to apply.
Each day?
No, just I assume just you only had to do it. Well, I don't know.
God, yeah, just stretch your shoulder, get naked several times, just robe multiple times, walk around this house all day in this, because it's like American History X when it's just that bright black swastika tattoo that's on Edward Norton, and you're just like, what a shitty thing to have to just redraw that stupid swastika every day. It's so bright black. It's like, tattoos don't look like that, and it's supposed to be an old tattoo. It's supposed to be green. They turn green. They all do.
I know. And if he forgot to take it off before leaving set, he goes to get coffee.
He goes to the gym. Shit.
Or he's a method actor, so he's just living the role.
Is he a method actor?
He is. Yeah.
Oh, that makes me want to watch a documentary of him and not be his friend.
Yeah, of course. There's that awesome photo of Daniel Day-Lewis as Abraham Lincoln getting at a restaurant eating a hot dog.
But you don't want to be his friend. And then Jim Carrey too, right? Another method actor.
Yeah.
That was a really good documentary. And Brad Pitt's method acting is that he has to be eating. That's it. That's his whole method.
Here's
he
my
does
method.
it in every fucking movie, and it works.
Oh, I hate it. I hate eating.
I find when I drink or eat on this podcast, I sound way better.
I wanted to just call out a few other things that suck.
All right.
The opening scene where it's a prologue. Lecter is, out in high society and he's attending the opera.
He's got his rockin' pony.
He's got his rockin' pony and his sweet rang. No, he doesn't have an earring. But he's not dad boner. He notices that the flautist keeps messing up, and then it cuts to he's hosting the board of directors of the opera.
What a fabulous amuse-bouche
at his house for dinner, and they're like, "Oh, Hannibal, you're so great at entertaining. I only wish our flautist wasn't missing right now. How tragic! It's the most ridiculous." Okay, but I think the worst part of the movie. Or just the thing that just really illustrates how
the end,
how clunky when you compare it to Silence of the Lambs and how elegant that is. When you're introduced to Ralph Fiennes' Dollarhide, the camera's just going around his mansion, and in voiceover, whatever, his house, his creepy old house. Mm-hmm. I know it used to be a retirement home. As the camera's panning around his creepy old house, voiceover, flashback from his abusive grandmother or mother, a device that's never used in the rest of the movie.
It was very jarring, but I needed that information.
Yeah. Come up with a better way to give us that information than just saying, all right, before you meet this guy, gotta let you know, his grandmother's really abusive. She called his dick really small and then she's going to cut it off. And then also...
She did.
That is what she did.
She didn't call it small. She said, take that thing between your legs and stretch it. You want me to cut it off? I'll cut it off. She never called it small. She just made him stretch it.
Sorry, I got the word small wrong.
Well, I'm just...
She's complaining about his big dick. One day you're going to run upstairs and people are going to see from behind and it's going to be huge.
What was even weirder, though, about that voiceover is that he's interacting with it. So it's like, I know they're trying to say this is happening in his head, but it's very much happening as a voiceover for us. And it's a super famous actress from The Notebook and from fucking... the movie we did here with Sandra Bullock.
Ellen Burstyn.
Yeah, Ellen Burstyn.
It was.
And then they showed the picture three times, of who the grandmother actually is. It looks nothing like Helen Burstyn.
I had no idea. I didn't know.
Fucking picture. It's like a
good
little
on
girl
you. You're
painted in old lady makeup. It's a crazy picture. Mm-hmm. Good on me. What?
For knowing it was Ellen Burstyn, I didn't.
Oh.
And that it wasn't Ellen Burstyn in the photo.
Right. The photo is no one.
At the end of the movie, Edward Norton is explaining to his wife, he's like, gee whiz, he wasn't born a monster, he was made a monster. He didn't want to be evil. This abuse made him evil. But the movie hasn't, once again, unearned. They haven't done the legwork to establish that he was a monster created from child abuse and tons of other horrific circumstances.
Do.
No, they don't. They have that one fucking pen, and they have him yelling.
All you fucking need.
That is not all you need.
That is horrific, and that's just him showing up in her room because he peed the bed. If he's already peeing the bed, it's already because he's being abused. That all you need to know is a little bit about child abuse to know that is the tip of the fucking iceberg. You can only imagine what's happened to him.
No, because then the rest of the movie you're seeing him doing horrific things. I think you need more to humanize him.
Wait, I thought you said... I'm saying that was plenty backstory for me to understand what happened to him. Also, look where he lives.
I'm not saying I need more backstory. I just need this to be a thread that continues a little bit more.
It does. There's a whole love interest part. They gave him a whole human for you to see.
Yeah, that's separate from what I'm talking about, which is
Edward
how
Norton
he was
seeing the humanity.
Yes.
Well, he met the love interest. She then talked to him about everything that had happened. She was super lovely. I'm pretty sure Edward Norton understood.
The humanity of his child that comes from his childhood.
He got the big book.
Regardless.
He got the big death book with all the fucking pages.
Harvey Keitel, bad. Very lazy, uninteresting performance.
He's Harvey Keitel. He gets to do whatever.
Yeah, he's a lazy actor a lot of the time. And you compare him, he was played by Scott Glenn in Silence of the Lambs, who is amazing. Anyone else? Philip Seymour Hoffman, who's fun. He's creepy.
Pegged him as that's the one. He's the killer. he's just so creepy.
Yeah.
And I love him, but he was, and then
but he's never a killer. He'll like call you and
not true.
He'll like ejaculate on your head, but he'll not kill you.
Oh, you're right. He's just like a molester or something. I'm trying to think.
He'll just molest you.
Well, he was something awful. Are you sure he's
Mission Impossible 3? He was the bad guy. Listen,
matter.
I'm not denying that he's killed before in films.
Thank you.
Thomas Harris. Let me just say one thing about him, and then we can go.
Okay. Believe I see it.
Never wrote another book after Hannibal. He wrote Hannibal Rising, which he did because the producer of the guy Dino De Laurentiis, whose big claim to fame is I own the intellectual property rights to Hannibal Lecter. It's not his only claim, but wants to make another movie. And he's like, Tom, can you write another book? And he's like, I don't want to. And he's like, all right, well, if you don't, I'm just going to have someone else write it. And he's like, God damn it. So he writes a story about young Hannibal in like Lithuania and like his clashes with the Nazi party or whatever. I haven't read it. They made it into a movie. I haven't seen it. But okay, so Thomas Harris wrote one book in 1976 that didn't have Lecter in it, then only wrote Lecter books about gruesome subject matter, never gave an interview, never did publicity until 2019. He gave an interview to the New York Times because he wrote a new book that was not about Hannibal Lecter. It's not about killing at all. It's about like the immigration system in Miami among some like Colombian refugees that I heard was great. He does. He lives in Miami.
It explains the Marathon Ford thing.
It does.
And how it feels like the end of the earth, depending on
what he
what is his background? I mean,
he's from Mississippi. I think he was in some relationship to the military. He loves animals.
Aww.
He volunteered at an animal wildlife rescue clinic for decades, and apparently the people who worked with him there didn't know. Like, they know his name is Thomas Harris. They didn't know he wrote The Silence of the Lambs.
I've never heard that
until relatively recently. Somebody just asked him what he did, and he's like, I'm an author. And like, anything we would have heard of. Like, they're asking me, like, yes, you ever read Generation Y?
Or
WHY?
Christy?
He's like, yeah, I created Dr. Hannibal Lecter, the American Film Institute's #1 villain of all time. But apparently he's one of these tortured writers who's like, writing is the worst. I fucking hate it. It's a drag.
It's compelled.
Emotional. It's a battle. It's so hard. Some days you can't think of anything. But
like every writer is that. But go ahead.
Yeah, but there's like, you get both. You get some who are like, it's a job. I just pound out my words every day and it's fine. And then you get people like him and. I'm kind of like that. I wish to be a more productive writer, but I'm like, I get depressed by.
Well, I think that you care very much about substance and about something interesting on the page. That's the problem with people who pound it out. People who can't edit. You over edit. I mean, you don't over edit, but you very much care about the end product, and I think. that's
I
good.
do, but okay, so he said something so interesting. So this is from the New York Times piece. Harris describes writing, quote, Harris describes writing as an almost passive process, something that happens to him rather than something he does. His novels start with a scene that plays in his head, then he tries to figure out what came before and what came after. He talks about his characters as though they exist in the world, leading parallel lives independent from his books. End quote. And like that is definitely how I found writing. And I've also, I've written music. It's kind of similar. Like when you write something, you don't feel like you created it. You're just like,
right.
I don't know, man. I just sort of like discovered something, or I wrote it down, but I didn't like think it up, or
right.
It's some way in which like the neurons in your head firing give you the words, and it just all seems kind of random and by chance. Mm-hmm. And you just have to do it enough till eventually you get something good. You're like, ooh, this is new.
Well, see, that's the exact, just a very much more local feeling of anyone that I know that becomes famous isn't the real kind of famous. It's just it's a piece of that, right? Like anything I created isn't really something I created, especially if it becomes successful. It's like, I didn't really.
I know what you're saying, but in like a very practical sense, it feels like I wrote these, like you
remembered something,
but I don't think anybody actually writes something. Like anybody actually creates something. And his whole thing in this interview is like, all these things in my books, these are things that happen. There's nothing new in the world. Every horrific thing has already been done to somebody somewhere. Mm-hmm. And then the article like awkwardly is like, which is why Harris is frustrated when people accuse him of being a psychopath, or like, I guess people on the internet are like, Thomas Harris probably actually does these kinds of murders.
You ever heard of DNA, asshole? I think
DNA. Oh, sorry.
I think they would have figured it out by now. Leave him alone.
He is kind of like the Will Graham. Like, to live in this world is very difficult, and that's why
why he retreats to Florida.
Hard for him, yes. Why he just spends time with his animals. The big picture at the top of this article is him holding a possum, and it's cute. And then the final thing. Okay, so
you said that was the final thing.
This is part B of the final thing.
Okay.
So Harris says, quote, the Hannibal character still occurs to me, and I wonder sometimes what it's up to, end quote. When you read the books are told by, a third person narrator. Characters are usually referred to by their last name, like Graham walked into the room, and then Lecter is always called Dr. Lecter by the narrator. And when there are descriptions of Dr. Lecter, it's like told in the present tense, which is just kind of a weird distinction. So he's sort of, it's like, he says, Dr. Lecter's eyes are maroon, and they reflect the light redly in tiny points. Graham felt each hair bristle on his nape. And so he's like,
right,
this exists. This is real and present tense. And the things that are happening in the story are past tense, but Lecter is a real thing, and you can go see him.
It almost seems like a mistake. Yeah. Because he's writing him completely in the present, and the things that Will felt in the past.
Well, the things that Lecter does happen in the past tense, but just descriptions about who he is.
Right.
It's present tense. It's a very interesting
at him
writing
in the
choice.
Room. And my girlfriend is beautiful, and right. And then she kicked this guy in the nuts.
Yep.
Yeah. Just a great example that I gave.
Yeah, it's great. This has been a great, kind episode. Harris has described feeling unnerved by his charismatic visit. He once wrote that he was not comfortable in the presence of Dr. Lecter. Not sure at all that the doctor could not see me. So somewhere out there, Dr. Lecter is watching you. Have we answered the question that we started the episode with?
Is it good?
That was not the question.
What the fuck was the question? Oh,
who you got in the Super Bowl?
Oh.
It was, what time does the Super Bowl start?
The Rhinos.
Yeah. Oh, they got a real good team this year. Who's in the Super Bowl, Lacey?
The Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah.
Okay, yay. And then the ones who have the really good guy, who I'm going to think of in just
That's
a
right.
second. The Chiefs?
That's right. You got it.
Let me think of the guy. Onomatopoeia. It's something like that.
His name is not Onomatopoeia.
Okay, but it's something like that. It's Kala Peppa. It's good Peppa. It's good on ya. Is it a C at all?
There's a C in the name.
Okay. Is it Charmel?
Okay, first name is also the first name of a person I'm friends with.
Patrick Dempsey.
That's right, Patrick
Malone. Patrick.
That's close.
Patrick Melichapi.
What?
It doesn't matter. Just tell me.
Patrick Mahomes.
Damn it!
Why? We should have kept going with that.
I was so close.
You were close, but I think people
Melichapi.
listening to this are like, no, I want to see I want to see how this plays out. Give her more clues. All right, next episode we'll play 20 questions.
We'll play.
Until then,
it's more like word association with me.
we should do that every episode.
All right.
Okay, that'll be our new recurring
You
bit.
find my mind fascinating, and that's
We always
sweet.
keep up with our recurring bits, like previously on Load Bearing Beams and
We really
Mickey's
stick with
Clubhouse
it, right.
Corner. But
Mickey's Clubhouse.